Okay, and next up we have Russell Miller from the recently formed ReNature London, and he's going to be talking about cultivating nature recovery. Take it away, Russell.
Thank you, Victoria. This is brilliant, absolutely brilliant that GiGL organised these days, because this is what it's about, getting people together to talk about this stuff, because it's quite complicated, and if we're going to make it work, there's going to have to be a lot of chat, and we might even have to make up some concepts, which I think we're getting to. So I'm Russell. I'm going to be talking about cultivating ReNature. It's just a concept I've come up with as a way of indicating the need for people to be involved in the process, and the fact that it is a process, an active process. Yes, it works. So ReNature is a new group. We're a bunch of practical ecologists from North and East London, kind of doing stuff because we know it needs doing, and we think we know what we're doing, and we're trying to check that we are doing what we think we're doing, and that the thing that we are doing does work, which I'll come on to. But yeah, we kind of do stuff, but we also communicate and teach. Yeah, so that's us. Okay, how does nature recovery work? Is it rewilding? Is it reintroducing lost species? Is it letting nature take its course? Is it planting meadows or trees? Yes, maybe, but don't know. So, quite usefully, my slides slipped off the bottom so you can't see what I've got at the bottom, which is ReNature. So, cultivating nature recovery is an idea around what it takes to do this. So you need people with a commitment to nature. Ta-da! I'm guessing this is kind of where I'm in the right place for this. Local knowledge. So we want passion for nature, we want an understanding of nature, and if we build resilience from the bottom up, so that we've got the right baseline habitats, and record the wildlife response, some of that should work. Yeah, I mean, surely. Okay, so this is what we've done. Last year, Gideon addressed this group with his project for Wildlife Gardens of Haggerston on the Old River Lee, which is the blue bit to the right, which is very interesting because it's one of the few unculverted rivers in London, particularly in East London. Then you've got Lee Navigation to the west, and Hackney Marshes is this big area of amenity sports grass in the middle. And gradually through mainly the 90s and early 2000s, it's been planted up with woodland. Is there any chance we can slide this up a little bit? Because I want to talk about woodland at some point. Oh, slide down, even better. Thank you, Victoria.
It's less than 2
Okay, we'll go. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so I just want to talk about a couple of areas, because it's a big area, and these are the two I'm going to talk about. The North Marsh Habitats project, we've been doing with woodland. But as you can see, the dots all the way around, we are ringing the marshes with habitat, and particularly deadwood piles, large deadwood piles, fenced. So this is the North Marsh site. The Metropolitan Sink is so the site of importance for nature conservation, which runs along the sides of the marshes and the River Lee, is at the top there. But basically, this is a more amenity sports grass, or it was. So you notice there's a football pitch and there's a cricket pitch, but there's nothing in that gap. Well, there is now. So I've been pushing Hackney for years to try and get east-west links across the marshes to improve the connectivity. I kept sort of being told, well, do it over there, do it over there, and they were kind of pointing in this direction. So when Gideon came to me and said, I've got some trees, but I think there's too many on the river already, I said, oh, let's plant them here. And if you've been around long enough, you know, and well, they can't say no, so we did it. And I mean, it's a really, really useful dynamic relationship with Hackney. We've managed to do all sorts of stuff because, you know, it usually works. And you'll notice that the copses that have been planted in such a way that you will maintain vistas. So you're not changing the character of the experience on the marshes for the big open spaces. Can't go into all of this, but in addition to planting trees, which obviously is a big push these days, we've also, that whole area is now no longer mown, and as a result we've basically created a new 1 hectare nature reserve and expanded the boundary to the sink. And we stuck a pond in and loads of dead wood and stuff, and I'll talk about that in a bit more detail. So, pond, nice pond, works. But the thing to notice is not just the pond, it's all the logs around the pond. Ian Phillips is a great local naturalist who works with ReNature a lot. He can't help himself moving logs because he knows that if he puts logs in the right places, he will get anything from grass snakes to toads to swallowtail voles to shrews to weasels, and it happens. So it's about doing an intervention, but doing it with some local knowledge and, you know, intervention plus. I don't know what we're going to call it, but. And then North Marsh Habitats Project was looking at the stuff around the new sports centre on the North Marsh, so that's a new building and a new car park. And I said to Hackney, look, you followed everything Sport England required for your changing rooms, but you didn't think about the sink. So they said, okay, what should we do? And they, we came up with a plan and they went with it, and we put tons of habitat in. And we're about to start coppicing this year. It was supposed to be December last year, but all our tools got nicked. You know, struggles working in the urban environment. It's a fantastic demonstration. The substrate garden designed by John Little. It was fantastic to work with him. Again, the thing to note is the complexity. So you've got reused substrates, very low nutrient, which is really good for seeding straight into, loads of floral response, but also the gabions provide a lot of structure, and they're full of rubble, basically. They're not full of kind of designer rocks. They're just recycled rubble, and they've got lots of big logs in them, which some of which have been drilled, and so you get a lot of structural habitat. And we've got wood mice nesting there, as well as all the pollinator benefits. So there's some fairly easy stuff. You put sort of, you know, bee posts in, and bees will come and use them. They're patchwork leafcutter bee nests in a reclaimed hardwood post. And so now down to Wick Woodland, the other end of the marshes. Thames Water came to Hackney and said, our pipe is going to break under Wick Woodland, and it's a 42-inch water main. You know, that's quite a lot of drinking water. So in other words, when that pipe breaks, half of East London doesn't drink unless they reroute a whole load of water somewhere else. So they were a little perturbed that there were 100 trees planted on top of their pipe, which probably shouldn't have been planted there, because eventually they will get heavy enough to crack the old cast iron pipe. So Hackney are left with the absolute PR nightmare of Thames Water wanting to fell 100 trees. So when they did, it pushed me to the front. Because I just think, well, yeah, great, you know, let's fell 100 trees in woodland, because it's a single-age structure, secondary woodland, and dead wood on the ground is going to make it a lot better. Plus we've got a nice way-leave all the way through, and we can get all the floral benefits of opening up the woodland. So we built some mega log piles and wired them together with high tensile steel to try and stop the boaters nicking it. We did lose one wood pile to a boater. He was fairly easy to track because there was tons of wood on his boat. It's working in East London for you. But it's great, it's really good. So, you know, you go from PR disaster of working with, you know, one of the most unpopular companies in the country, felling trees, to actually really, really good result. And this is the thing about partnership working. The people on the ground, you know, they want to do the right thing. They're trying to protect their pipe, and it's a massive win-win. Not only that, so we've done some recording. We haven't got the resources to do kind of proper scientific monitoring. This is, we found it and we think it meets this, really robust science. A new species to the UK, so this really works, you know, I mean, we've already got a new species to the UK. Obviously, the new species to the UK is completely random, and we don't know where it came from, but it's quite a good looking beetle, and it's not terribly invasive, because it lives in hazel, it's from Europe, and probably won't cause too much of a problem. So, yeah, ignore the beetle. 4 new species to the marshes, or 4 species we think have returned to the marshes, 45 species we think in recovery of those 250. But as I say, this is, we found it and we think it's doing well, rather than, you know, robust monitoring data. This kestrel is sitting above that John Little demonstration garden, looking down for the mice. So there's 2 new kestrels on the marshes at the moment. Smooth newts will come back, short-tailed voles will come back. And there's a little story about whitethroats in a minute. In addition to those, I couldn't get 45 species on the slide, but I thought these ones might interest people. So wood weasels, hedgehogs, you know, a bunch of bees, damselflies, they're all apparently doing quite well. But to the point. The point is, you can do stuff, but you don't necessarily know exactly what your stuff is going to achieve. So apparently marshes, you might expect to be wet, but it contains most of the East End bomb rubble, and is 2 metres higher than it was, so it's not very wet, it's actually very, very dry. So to make it wet, we had to put wet scrapes in. So we dug a hole, put a liner in it, and then filled it with logs so that toddlers don't fall in it. But also we filled it with logs because saprophyte flies love a soggy log. And also, if the logs absorb the water, when it dries out, there'll still be a bit of dampness in there. So if you're a toad, you might crawl underneath. What we didn't anticipate is the whitethroats would move in next door in the scrub because there were flies on the wet scrape. And this is the thing about, you can think it, but until you do it, it doesn't, you can't know all of it. So we also do some teaching. This is the London tree officers. I took a bunch of about 50 London tree officers to see all the trees I'd killed in Woodland and basically told them their trees are better off dead. And they took it really well. We also did a nature recovery conference in June. Yeah. So, strategy, design, delivery, monitoring, learning. That's kind of what we want to do. But how do we do it? Well, there's the bureaucratic convention, which we can't get round, and there's a more naturalistic approach. So you can do all the strategy stuff, which Francis' team is working on, and is really, really important. But at the same time, if we just have strategy and it goes through a process in which is so extended that the process of delivery is very separate from the process of strategy, and I know these guys are working around that, it becomes difficult to get that feedback learning. Whereas if you just kind of know what you're doing, design it on the back of an envelope, go do it and keep your eyes open, chances are you'll actually notice. So, difference between significant disconnection and minimal separation. So this is what I call ecological praxis. Now I know that sounds a bit pretentious, but it is the word that means what I'm talking about. It's doing stuff with theory and then developing your theory through doing stuff. So if you observe nature and design your interventions for the local conditions, and you deliver those interventions and then monitor, you can observe nature again, keep doing it, and it might get better. So what I'm getting at is we need to apply a way of thinking around what we're doing. And that way of thinking is really probably about how most people in this room do think. It's about passion for nature, understanding nature, and intervening where you can. And it's about people being in nature, and there's me playing in a sandpit. Because actually building a pond is really quite hard. I allocated 2 days for building the pond. 2 weeks later, we were still doing it. But if we can help those people who care enough and know enough, or do enough, nature recovery will work. Thank you.